So when we think about victory with Chomsin, we often imagine, well, brute strength, right? Or maybe sheer luck. Winning because of some incredibly powerful force, or just being at the right place at the right time. But this wisdom flips that idea on its head. True victory isn't really about strength at all. It's about planning, meticulous, thoughtful planning that guides us towards success with purpose, not chance. Let's unpack that a bit. The wisdom says that victory is in planning. And honestly, it makes so much sense when you stop to think about it. Take startups, for example. Some of the most successful startups didn't get there because they had huge amounts of money or resources. They were, scrappy. But what they did have was an incredible vision. And more importantly, they had a plan. They knew how they wanted to execute on their ideas, step by step, even when the odds were stacked against them. One great example is probably Slack. The team didn't start off with tons of funding or game-changing hardware. Instead, what they had was software, a simple, streamlined tool for team communication, and a clear plan on how to adapt and grow it. And, well, we all know where Slack ended up, right? Used by millions globally. The win wasn't in brute force or money. It was meticulous planning and consistent execution that kept them ahead. And you see, this is exactly what this wisdom is pointing out. Success doesn't just show up at your doorstep, wrapped in a bow. You need strategy, real, thought-out strategy, to outthink setbacks, respond to challenges, and navigate the uncertainties of the journey. So I think what this wisdom is telling us is that you've got to approach life like a strategist, not just a warrior. Arm yourself with plans, not just power, because at the end of the day, careful planning is what builds lasting victories. All right, so if planning is at the core of victory, and I think we can all agree it is, then what's the key to great planning? Well, this wisdom suggests it's something we don't always prioritize. Reflection. Deep, intentional thinking that goes beyond surface-level problem solving. And here's the thing. True reflection takes practice. It's not this automatic process we kind of turn to in a rush. We live in such a fast-paced world that, honestly, the idea of slowing down can feel almost counterproductive. But it's exactly in those slower, more focused moments that our minds can connect the dots and uncover fresh perspectives. Think about innovators like Steve Jobs. It's said that his ability to reflect deeply, to strip away distractions and focus on perfecting an idea was key to Apple's success. Jobs famously took long walks to think through challenges, carving out time for solitude and reflection. And that kind of deep thought enabled him to simplify complexity in ways that were, truly revolutionary. But there's more to it than just taking time to reflect. The environment plays a huge role too. When you surround yourself with clutter or constant noise, whether it's actual noise or just the noise of endless notifications, your brain just doesn't get the chance to process. You don't get the space to really dive into a problem, right? That's why environments like nature trails, or even like cozy personal corners, can make such a massive difference for people who need clarity. And the beauty of all this? It's not just about work or solving some grand problem. Reflection like this helps in personal life too. Whether it's reevaluating relationships, thinking through major decisions, or, just figuring out what really matters to you. It's one of those things that feels small but often leads to the biggest breakthroughs. So we've talked about how victory starts with planning and how deep reflection sharpens those plans. But there's one final piece that ties it all together, and that's, secrecy. The wisdom points out that keeping your plans under wraps, especially in the early stages, is just as critical as the planning itself. And honestly, I think we've all seen why that matters. Let me give you an example. In 1944, during World War II, the success of the D-Day invasion was in large part due to how carefully the Allied forces kept their strategies secret. Operation Overlord, as it was called, involved layers of deception to mislead the enemy. Fake armies, decoy radio signals. It was all meant to hide the real invasion plans. And it worked, Without that secrecy, the whole operation could have fallen apart. Victory in that case literally depended on staying quiet. But it's not just military history, right? We see the same thing in business and everyday life. Think about product launches. Companies like Apple are, notoriously tight-lipped about new devices. They build anticipation by controlling what gets leaked and when. Contrast that with situations where competitors tip their hand too early. It's almost always a recipe for disaster, whether it's losing your edge or giving opponents the chance to outmaneuver you. And here's the thing, keeping things secret isn't always easy. We live in a hyper-connected world where privacy feels, honestly, like a fleeting concept. Social media, instant communication, cloud storage, these tools can be super helpful, sure, but they also make it harder to protect sensitive information. It's a constant balancing act, right? Between wanting to share what you're excited about and knowing that revealing too much too soon could really set you back. What's fascinating, though, is how different cultures perceive secrecy. In some contexts, being open and transparent is valued above all else. In others, like in Asian philosophy or historical Islamic thought, wisdom often comes with a focus on quiet contemplation and holding back until the time is right. It's interesting to think about how these differences shape the way we approach strategy and problem-solving globally. At the end of the day, what this wisdom gives us is a framework for success that's, well, timeless. Plan intentionally, reflect deeply, and keep your cards close to your chest until you're ready to act. It's not just about achieving a goal, it's about doing it with clarity, foresight, and purpose. So as we wrap things up, I think it's worth reflecting on how these principles tie into our own lives. Whether it's launching a project, navigating relationships, or just making everyday decisions, this approach can guide us toward victories that are meaningful and lasting. And that's all for today. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.